Hey guys, welcome to This History, the brand new channel created with the sole aim of bringing us all closer to the history that's all around us. Today I'm super excited. We've got our first episode of a new regular feature called This Week in History, where we look through the ages and find significant events throughout history that happened this week, breaking them down into little bite-sized and digestible chunks. Maybe add a little value to your life. Maybe you can look super cool or knowledgeable in front of your friends or your work colleagues, or even someone you're trying to chat up, right? It's a surefire chat up line. Did you know, this day, 1919, the German cabinet resigned because of the Treaty of Versailles? No way, really, is that true? Absolutely, get your coat. I'm on fire. That didn't actually happen today, by the way. I just made that up. That's not part of the episode. Anyway, get all the pomp and ceremony out of the way. Let's get this ship sailing. Okay, kicking us off, it was on this day, the 8th of June in the year 793, that the Vikings attacked the Northumbrian coast of England and attacked the Church of St. Cuthbert in Lindisfarne. Now, it wasn't the first time that Vikings had landed on the shores of England. Indeed, in 789, they're recorded as landing in the shores of Wessex, promptly killing all of those that welcomed them. But the attacks in Lindisfarne are different. They struck at the heart of Christianity in the Northumbrian kingdom. Not only that, they struck at the church where Cuthbert was bishop and then later revered as a saint. An attack so brutal and so savage that it was said to send shockwaves throughout Europe and pretty much was the start of 2 centuries of Saxon-Viking conflict and eventual coexistence. Fast forward almost a millennium, and it was on this day, the 9th of June 1772, that colonists boarded the British vessel the Gaspee that had run aground. Boarded it, attacked the commander and promptly set the ship on fire. Now, why is this significant? Because it is regarded by many as being the first naval engagement of the American Revolution. The Gaspee was pursuing a smuggling vessel when it ran aground near Rhode Island. The colonists, who were unhappy at the high taxes they were suffering from British rule, decided to board her and cause chaos, which promptly led to escalated tensions between British and American governments. The British did try to find and prosecute the culprits, however they couldn't find an American that would turn on their countrymen, right? Which ultimately led to the Boston Patriots and their propaganda machine and eventually all-out war. Now, almost 20 years to the day before the burning of the Gaspee, there's a man called Benjamin Franklin who thought it would be a good idea to fly a kite in a thunderstorm. As it turns out, it was a very good idea because he was able to collect ambient electrical charge in a Leyden jar, which ended up for him proving the connection between electrical energy and lightning. A true overachiever, Benjamin Franklin was a brilliant man, a truly brilliant man. Massive achievements in both science and in the business world, but not just this, huge contributions to society really, where he set up a library, city hospital, even an academy, which is actually now the University of Pennsylvania. Disclaimer, I would say it's probably not a good idea to fly a kite in a thunderstorm, so don't do it. Just don't do it. Bad idea. Taking us back to Tudor times now, it's the 11th of June 1509, and a young King Henry VIII married the first of his 6 wives, Catherine of Aragon. Oh boy, what a story that was, right? Where do we start? At the same time as Catherine and Henry not being able to produce a male heir, Henry's having his head turned by a young lady in his court, Anne Boleyn. Henry wanted to divorce Catherine, get the marriage annulled, but the Catholic Church are having none of it. Chaos. Pope Clement VII just refused to annul the marriage. Not doing it, not at all. This obviously led to the Protestant Reformation in the UK, in England. Henry basically set himself up a new church. I am now the head of the Church of England. Have that, Rome. Essentially, the king, Henry, he saw himself second only to God. He was no way going to allow the Roman Catholic Church to tell him what to do in his own country. That's the way he saw it. And if the Pope's not going to let him do what he wants, then he's just going to set up his own church. There you go. As we know, Henry and Anne actually didn't manage to have a male heir either. They had one daughter, who soon became Queen Elizabeth I. Not being able to produce a male heir, she quickly fell out of favour and eventually lost her head. Henry then went on to marry another 4 times. Moving us into the 20th century, it was on this day, the 12th of June 1942, that a little girl called Anne Frank got her diary for her 13th birthday. Now, only a month later, after her birthday, her and her family had to go into hiding in offices behind her father's office in Amsterdam, fleeing Nazi persecution, where they hid for 2 years, 2 whole years, hiding in these tiny rooms behind these offices before they're eventually ratted out, I think, and arrested by the Gestapo, taken to concentration camps. Her mother was taken to the camp in Auschwitz, Anne and her sister taken to the camp in Bergen-Belsen, where Anne actually, I think, died about a month before the end of the war. In the 2 years that Anne was in hiding, she filled her diary with lots of stories, first-hand accounts really of her life in hiding. But like I say, lots of stories, characters, drawings. She actually made up different characters as well. I think, Dear Kitty, I think, springs to mind. She, wonderful imagination, and filled her diary with all sorts of stuff. It was her wish to be a published author, actually, and I think it was 1947. After the war, her uncle Otto actually granted that wish and published The Diary of a Young Girl, which I think has now been translated into over 60 languages. Listen, if you've never been to the Anne Frank Museum in Amsterdam, if you haven't read that book, please do. I recommend it. It is just astonishing read, absolutely astonishing read from a quite wonderful young girl. Now we go way back to the year 323 BC, and it's on this day, the 13th of June, that Alexander the Great dies. Heralded as the military genius from Macedonia, son of King Philip II and Queen Olympia, he was schooled by Aristotle, and after never losing a single battle by 330 BC, Alexander had the largest empire in the world, stretching from the Mediterranean all the way to India. Alexander died in Babylon, which is modern-day Iraq, actually, after having never chosen a successor to his throne, presumably because he thought he was some sort of god, right, as did many of his followers, but never chose a successor, led to massive problems within his empire, warring factions, ultimately the destruction of his whole empire in the end. Alexander, he was laid to rest in a golden coffin and taken to the city that was named after him in Alexandria in Egypt, where he still rests today. Racing forwards through the ages now and back to the Second World War, it was this day, 1942, the 14th of June 1942, that German troops invaded the streets of Paris. Parisians were woken to the sound of German voice, a German accented voice over loudspeakers announcing a curfew that day at 8 p.m. I mean, imagine that, waking up and hearing that. Utterly terrifying. Over 2 million people, over 2 million Parisians actually fled the city over that time, as the Gestapo went to work, right? Arrests, interrogation, spying, you know the drill, right? As all that started to happen to the people that remained, and it was on this day that a giant swastika was hung from the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. This all led to French surrender and the Vichy government and all that jazz. But that's a story for a different day, actually. A story not too far away in future history. So there we have it, guys. A whistle-stop tour through this week in history. You know, us guys, we're like time travellers. Us guys right now, time travellers. You listen closely enough, you can hear the sounds of our TARDIS. Anyway, I do hope you've liked it. I do hope you've enjoyed it today. If you have, please do like and subscribe. Share it amongst your friends, your loved ones. Share the love, please. It means a lot to me just getting started, so please hit that subscribe button. But anyway, it's important to get subscribed, right, so I can let you know about other content that we're bringing on this channel. There's not just this week in history that we do today. There's also a segment that I call History Now, where I go and visit historic locations, actually visiting the sites of history and really bringing us close to history, learning a bit about the story behind it. There's another segment as well which I call Detecting History. I'm a keen metal detectorist, and there will be videos, episodes of out in the fields, actually finding history, little pieces of treasure, little pieces of history that have been buried for centuries, bringing them back to the surface and learning about those as well. So like and subscribe, and I can notify you of all of the new stuff that's coming your way. And if you feel like it, leave some comments on this video. Please do. I'd love to hear from you guys. Give me some feedback. Tell me what you like, what you didn't like. I'd love to hear from everyone. Please do. But most of all, stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you soon. Much love.